And this is part 4 of our Blackjack command block series. All right, so jumping right back in, we've got repeat, unconditional, always active. That was built for 75 ticks, and it's testing for red wool, as we discussed at the end of the last video. All right, so next we've got impulse, unconditional, always active. And this is going to be a set block for your ignition point. And the next, chain conditional, always active. We got 80 ticks on this. So refer back to your outcome coordinates. This is going to be a simple dealer wins. Chain unconditional, always active. This is our dealer bust. So we've got the title command. Dealer busts. So this next one will be chain conditional, always active. And then here we're going to set this for the outcome chain that's already been preset. And this should be player wins chain. Chain unconditional, always active. So all we're looking for here is if the dealer score equals the player blackjack score, unless the dealer is 16 or less, then we're going to have a push. So set this for your push outcome coordinates. Chain unconditional, always active. In this command, if the player score is greater than the dealer score, unless the dealer score is less than 17, then we're going to have our player wins outcome. So here we're just going to reset the ignition. Chain unconditional, always active. So we're going to load the next structure, which is Jack R10, and this is going to be to the R2 coordinate. So basically these last few blocks are all about the conditions where the dealer is going to hit. We've already resolved the reasons why the dealer wouldn't hit earlier in this chain. So I think the easiest solution here is we'll go ahead and use a structure block and copy that whole first chain, because we've already put in the majority of the relative coordinates. So, and on top of that, the decision path is basically identical, right? So we're just saving a great deal of time if we just copy and paste, but we have to make sure that we go back in and adjust things, because there are going to be differences from chain to chain to chain. So yeah, go through very carefully and make sure that you've made those proper adjustments. And spoiler alert, I already know that I made a few mistakes that we'll have to circle back to later. So yeah, it is what it is. And by later, I do mean in this video. I promise you, by the end of this video, we will have a fully functioning blackjack game. So again, we're simply gonna paste the structure that we just copied. I think this is probably the most obvious. I'm gonna point it out anyway. Right off the bat, we're gonna need to at least adjust the Y coordinate for the structure we just copied and pasted, which I've just done here with the -1. And so now we're also looking at our Z coordinate, and it appears that we're going up 1 on the Z, and we've gone up 1 on the Y. Yeah. So we want to do -1 on the Y and -1 on the Z. The exception to that is when we get to the red wool, because except you'll still need the set block, the -1. Something I want to point out here, I missed this before. Go ahead and set this one to R11. I missed it. I'm gonna circle back, but you might as well get it right now. So with the red wool, do the -1. Do not subtract the Z. I goofed that up. So you can leave the Z 1 because that chain keeps moving. The relative coordinates move with it. So yeah, that one we can leave alone. So now we don't have to worry about the Y coordinate, but we're going to be subtracting 2 from the Z coordinate. If it seems like I'm going too fast on a certain block, just remember the identical block was on the previous chain. All we're doing is going in and changing the Z coordinate on this particular one. Again, R12. Change that to Jack R12, please. And then the red wool, leave that alone. It's going to get all goofed up. And at some point, I'll come back and fix it. But, oh, look, I got smart. So I'll probably now circle back and try to fix that. But yeah, don't mess with those. Aha. Yep. So if you did follow my mistake, then at least follow my fix right now. I think we're looking good. $75 ticks delay on all of those repeat blocks at the beginning of those chains. Just be aware. And my apologies for the brain freeze. Just calculating some relative coordinates for ignition. Oh, I don't know if you just saw that, but that last block that said -2 on the Y was incorrect. That should be -1. Might as well fix it now. Well, since I'm killing us with these delays that I thought I had edited out, I guess now would be a good time for me to offer up a unprecedented opportunity. So I think anybody who has had the madness, patience, and fortitude to stick around this long and follow me through this series deserves an opportunity to win something. So here are the stipulations to my contest. My offer is that I would say the first 3 individuals who watch the entire series and recreate this exact build in their own world, and then invite me to come check it out in game for myself and confirm that the build has been repeated successfully. will win a prize in the cryptocurrency of their choice. So in this very moment, as I'm speaking, I'm willing to offer $200 in Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., as long as it's Coinbase friendly, to the first player who completes this, who completes a fully functioning version of exactly what I've created here in this video and can prove it. And then $100 cryptocurrency to the second person, and then $50 to the third person. And once again, I need to be invited to confirm that this is legit. And in addition to that, I will record footage of that interaction, and I will share that and post that in a future video. One more stipulation. The contest runs until December 31st, 2025. So this offer expires almost exactly 1 year from the release of this video. So again, we're going to set the ignition to air. All right, and so next we're going to work on our player blackjack sensor. So here's our dealer blackjack sensor, and we're going to do something very similar for the player. Repeat, unconditional, always active. We'll go ahead and take a look at that BJ scoreboard. So as you can see, I've already preset a spelled out 1 to a numeric 1. So once again, just like previous scoreboard operations, now the game has a reference point. So we're comparing it to that. As a side note, I have seen commands where it's literally saying if the score equals 1. But I found that the execute command is a better fit for most of what I've done. So there may be some situations where I could have used an alternative code, but overall I found the execute command to be a really good fit. So that's that. So basically what we're doing here is we are triggering the reset chain command, which we haven't programmed yet, but we'll get to that. So we have a few odds and ends that we need to clean up. For the most part, all of the major components of the build are done. I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, so bright. Right now, what we're working on is mostly housekeeping stuff. So what we're creating now is our scoreboard conversion sensor, if you will. So we're converting our prime scoreboard value to our blackjack scoreboard value. And you might be wondering, why do we even have multiple scoreboards? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is when we were looking at the prime scoreboard, there were a lot of reference scores that I mentioned. And as I said, it was kind of clutters the screen. It's just an eyesore. It's not nice to look at. That's part of it. The other part of it is that we have a hurdle to overcome that we haven't even discussed yet, and that is the ace hurdle, the ace challenge. So if you're familiar with poker, you'll already know that an ace can have two values. An ace can be a 1, an ace can also be an 11. So the purpose of having the separate scoreboard, in addition to what I already mentioned, is that it buys the decision tree, the command chain, a little bit of time to decide if the player was going to bust and if we should change that 11 to a 1. All right, so now something kind of special I just recently learned and converted. So we're saving a structure, right? The structure is just that one floating diamond. So we're going to use this in our payout scheme. So instead of setting up a command block that's going to pay a player when they win a hand, we're going to load the structure of this diamond over the player's head. And the reason I want to do it this way is because when a command block gives you an item, it spams the screen. Once again, going back to, it's an eyesore. I don't like it. So I've set it up this way so that we can receive the payout without the nonsense, without the spam, you know. So now we'll actually get into the command itself. So again, we've got a tag equals jack, but our diamonds scoreboard has to be 1 or more. That's how we're writing this. So this first command block is simply testing for that player with that tag and with at least 1 diamond registered on their scoreboard. And so this next command is going to remove a score of 1 on the diamonds scoreboard from a player that has at least a score of 1. And that's chain conditional, always active. And once again, chain conditional, always active. So finally on this command chain, this is the command I was just talking about. We're going to execute as @player @player. And then we're actually going to load that structure that we just saved with the floating diamond. We're going to load that over the player's head 1 time for every score of 1 that the player has on the diamonds scoreboard. So as you can see there, I loaded it 2 blocks above the player's head. And we'll do a little demonstration because a lot of what I'm saying, even to myself, sounds like mumbo jumbo. So let's see it in action. So I'm not sure if you saw my diamonds count in my hotbar, but I have 3 diamonds on me right now. Right. So now we turned on the diamonds scoreboard. I had 0 at the time. It was very quick, but if you caught a glimpse of it, it quickly went down from 5 to 0, and now I have 8 diamonds in my hotbar. and none of the nonsense spamming from command blocks on the screen. So I had mentioned the diamond dilemma. Sorry, that just had a nice ring to it. Diamond dilemma. No, I had mentioned the ace dilemma, right? I'm not gonna blow smoke here. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a good solution. I'm warning you now, copy down the ace sensor fix, just as I have it here. It's directly under the stage. It will work, but I'm warning you now, type it in exactly as I have them here, but just know you're probably going to have to experiment with the tick delay. You're probably going to have to experiment with your blackjack sensor, your 21 sensor, the things we were working on earlier. Really got to dial this in, because if it's too fast, you can have two aces get turned to a 1 at the same time, which is going to look ridiculous, and it's going to ruin the integrity of the hand. And if it's too slow, your player is going to bust, and then a split second later, it's going to catch up, and it's going to look like the player busted with a 14. So just know going into it that it's a solution and it will work, but you really got to dial it in. If you guys can come up with a better solution, let me know. Put it in the comments. Make a video of it. Tag me in it. I want to know. But I'm just full disclosure. It's not a perfect solution. It's just a solution. So we'll put it to the test, and I'll show you exactly what it does right here. So we've got our blackjack scoreboard up. We've got an ace on the table. So currently my score is a 2. So I'm not in danger of busting. So now my score is a 17. Clearly, I'm still not gonna bust, right? You can see that there's the glow frame with the ace sensors is checking for. It's there, it's present. I hate to do this to you again, but I just can't help it. Every time I'm in that, on the precipice of something that could go sideways, I like to back it up. All right. Without further ado, so we're going to set the prime score to 22. It does take a split second for the blackjack to catch up. And now, as you see, the game has deducted 10 points because of the ace. So we are no longer in bust position. And that's the way the ace sensor works. And you can see it has cleared itself so that it won't continue to subtract 10 points every time the player's score is over 21. And again, that is the delicate balance of this approach, this strategy, is we don't want it to work too good. We want it to work just the right amount. So again, another sensor, it worked correctly. You can see that it has been removed. It will not repeat. We put everything back to new. So we have another sensor to put together. It's quick. So we have the ST7. So as soon as this becomes a card, it's no longer air. We want a sensor to clear off the ST8 card so that the game automatically progresses forward to the next round. So this is what I've come up with as a solution to that. This sensor is going to be a little bit different. So most of our sensors are testing for the presence of a specific block. This sensor is going to be testing for the absence of a specific block. And in this case, that specific block is air. So as soon as the ST7 coordinate is no longer air, it's going to disengage our piston and conversely engage the effect that the sensor is testing for. So as you can see right now, the redstone dust is not activated because our repeat command block is testing for air and finding air. So that signal will not be passed along until the sensor is no longer finding air. And so the function of this sensor is as soon as ST7 is not air, it's going to automatically turn ST8 into air, which will then activate the ST8 sensor. All right, so now we're going to clear everything off. Yep, you two, you're gone. Bye-bye. So now we want to set our stage for what we want the reset to look like. This is still going to be a temporary structure. We'll fine-tune things as we go along, but this is the process. So we do have our welcome dealer. And now we're going to look for a good spot. Now remember, we want the ACE sensors to reset every time as well. So we're going to be looking to find coordinates to reset the entire stage every time, which means we're going to clear all of the cards that have been placed down. We're going to clear the dealer, and we're going to reset those ACE sensors so that every hand they're active, you know. So as you can imagine, in order to pull that off, we're going to have to save from down here. I would recommend finding some coordinates that are just easy to remember, because there's a good chance you'll be typing them in multiple times. So as of this point right here, -105, -51, 315, it looks good to me. So we'll go ahead and make that the location for our stage 0 structure. We'll type that in exactly like that. All right, so now we've moved back to our last chain, which is the reset chain. And there's a reason we saved this for last. And a big part of that was so that we had the coordinates for our stage 0, because that's going to be a part of this. So I'm adding a radius of 60. It's an option, just something to keep in mind. There's a possibility that you could stack multiple blackjack games in your world, so you may not want them fighting with each other. Just something to keep in mind. So as you see here, that last command, we're resetting that entire outcome chain. We just want to make sure it's all clear. Even though each one individually resets itself, it's a just a double insurance policy to make sure 100% everything is reset. All right, so here we have our structure load R1. This does look correct, so this is going to reset the main circuit. And so just like we did in our temporary reset, here we're just clearing off the last dealer so that we can teleport the welcome dealer to the stage. You can play around with that Y coordinate. What's important is that the dealer ends up in the void or ends up somewhere that's it's not disturbing and distracting. So remember, we just created the stage 0 structure. So we're going to look back to the coordinates we came up with and type in the appropriate relative coordinates to this block right here. And again, we have a fill command. So the previous time we did a fill to reset the outcome chain. With this particular one, we'll take a look. We're going to reset the dealer decision chain. All of those, the red wool, we want to make sure that's all reset. And again, here's a scoreboard that goes into something that we're not going to utilize immediately. So a future add-on video, perhaps we'll get into all that stuff. We can take a quick peek at what it looks like. And as you can see, there's a reason we would need to reset that, but we're not even using it. So for the time being, don't worry about it. And another scoreboard that we want to reset. All right, the remaining blocks deal with advanced things that we are not going to do in this video. So you don't need it. We'll add them on at a later date. So now we skipped the ST8 sensor earlier, and there's good reason for that. It wasn't working. It wasn't working properly. So the first thing we want to do is fly back to our stage and place a barrier block on the ST8 position on that coordinate. And so now this sensor is going to be testing that spot for air, right? So the default beginning block will be that barrier block as soon, or it's going to be, oopsie, I guess I need a new battery for my controller. That's embarrassing. So that default barrier block will be replaced with a frame card, at some point. There will be a very, very brief moment where that frame is replaced by air. And that is what the sensor is testing for. So this part is really important. Make sure you get the tick delays exactly right. That first block was 0. This block we're working on now is 50. And now the tick delay on this is 40. A little something I'd like to add on here. So we're going to reset the scoreboard to where it's not even there. And then we'll go back to the dealer and let the dealer set the scoreboard for blackjack. Want to adjust the delay and ticks on this. Let's set the top one for 40 ticks. We'll go ahead and do the same thing here. As I mentioned earlier, you may have to go back through and fine-tune some of the delay and ticks. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all part of the process. So we're going to have the dealer set the scoreboard for blackjack. And then we'll go back to the reset chain and clear that so there's no annoying scoreboard on the side of the screen. And there you go. Oh, whoopsie doopsie. All right, I mentioned before, if I make a mistake, I'll fix it. So I accidentally loaded that in the wrong spot. Don't do that. Don't do what I did. But I loaded a new structure of air and then just correctly loaded the R1 structure. All right, we are very, very close to the end here. So as I said before, I actually want to add the command that the dealer is going to set the scoreboard to blackjack. So we already set the reset command chain to clear the scoreboard, And now, as soon as a player sets their wager with the NPC, it will turn the blackjack scoreboard back on. And we'll go ahead and save that structure. And remember, we also need to resave the stage 0 structure. All right, so everything's looking pretty good. All right, so we'll give this a test run. Dope. All right. All right, you got me this time. Something to keep in mind when you do design your stage, and or when you're choosing the color of your outcome text. Red on red, it's not great. So, that's up to you. Oh, I think we got him this time. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So take some time, pause the video, and design your stage exactly how you want. I'll do the same. We'll meet back here and we'll play a couple of hands. All right, and we're back. Come on. Give a guy a break. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Well, there you have it. That is a successful build. I greatly appreciate you joining me on this adventure. Please like, share, subscribe, stay tuned. And if you have suggestions for other builds that you want to see, let me know. Appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next one.